Comedy about Vietnam was never contemplated. It just was not a subject to be contemplated. The idea of doing a comedy about Vietnam was verboten.
I mean, you know, World War II, there was actually comedies, you know, during World War II and et cetera, that would find a way to deal with a certain amount of humor in the armed forces. So this was not to make fun of servicemen or whatever, but you know, there's humor to be mined because of the characters and their relationships.
The film, as it progresses, there's a certain point in the film where things start to get dark.
Some people said, well, you can't write a comedy about Vietnam, and other people were saying, well, you can't write a story about you can't write a comedy that has bombings.
The executives, when it was at Paramount Studios at the time, took a look at it and said, no, it's got to be a comedy. It's got to be a comedy from beginning to end.
And I said, how can you have Vietnam without a bombing? I mean, that's a big leap, you know. And well, they said Larry fought it out with them, and to Larry's credit, you know, he said, we're not taking it out.
So it went from 3 studios, all of whom said, we will not make this picture, finally to Disney and Jeff Katzenberg, who said, I think we can make this film.
When I read the script, I said, this is going to work. It's the right vehicle for Robin Williams. This will, and with it had the right package. Barry Levinson was the right director for this material. This does not mean that someone else couldn't have made the movie and it wouldn't have been successful. It wouldn't have been this movie. But Robin and Barry were the right people for this material.
The real comedy happens in this movie is like when you're seeing Robin Williams on the air. And watching Robin Williams on the air, you can see how funny.
Matter of fact, good morning, Heraklion, because I was at Heraklion Air Station. But as the program developed and got wilder and wilder, the good morning, Heraklion got wilder and wilder. When I went to Vietnam, my first couple of months, I was the news director, which is why I got involved in some of the problems of censorship. But then the fellow who did the morning show was leaving, and I was slated to take over, so I took what I had been doing in Greece and pretty much transplanted it to Saigon. And Good Morning Heraklion became Good Morning Vietnam. The one thing that really was wrong about the movie was the way Robin did the sign-on. Because what he did was just a rising crescendo of Good Morning Vietnam, and that's not the way it was really done. In reality, you stress the word good for a very practical reason, because if you're a morning man, it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. You are going to oversleep. And when that happens, you come tearing into the station at the very last minute, and you're staggering around half asleep, half dressed, and you don't have any records pulled, and you don't know where your headphones are, and you haven't put in your contact lenses, and no tapes are set up. And as you walk through the studio, you hear the newsman saying, "That's the latest from the Armed Forces Radio Newsroom. Next news in 1 hour." Now you got to do something. So as you try and pull some records and find your headphones and get everything set up, you turn on the microphone and you say, "Good morning, Vietnam." But that shout became pretty well known. And I found that it wasn't always well received. Sometimes on particularly bad days, it was not unknown for some of the troops, when I'd yell, "Good morning, Vietnam," they would turn to their radios, yell the GI equivalent of "Get stuffed, Kronauer." And on one occasion I heard of, a guy picked up his M1 and blew away his radio. Nonetheless, when I left Vietnam, the fellow who took up the morning show from me kept that shout and continued it throughout his tour. An Army specialist by the name of Kramer Haas was his name. And it became a tradition with just about every morning man thereafter. So sometimes at a veterans reunion now, a man will walk up to me and say, "I used to listen to you every morning." "Oh, really? When were you there?" "Oh, I was there in 69, 70. Well, you see, I started that in 65, 66. But what they remember is that shout.
We used Bangkok, Thailand as Saigon. We had to change all the street signs. Everything had to be made Vietnamese. The outfits had to be different. The thing that really tied the city up was the fact that the traffic is on the other side of the street going in certain directions, like the difference between here and England, for example.
It's the right side to the left side, or I don't remember. The steering wheel would have been on the right. It's now on the left. I can't remember which is which anymore. But it was the opposite. So when you see all these cars, we had to reset up the traffic in a city that's amazingly congested.
I mean, incredible traffic. And you'd see 5 people on a motorcycle. You'd see a family of 5 on a motorcycle. You'd see a mother, a father, 2 kids hanging on the back, and they'd have one up front. Amazing traffic jams.
We were shooting in an enormous intersection that actually 8 major streets lead into, going into a boulevard that goes down to the Royal Palace. We were doing a scene in which we had about 600 extras, 150 vehicles, many of which we had made. We closed all of the streets and the intersection, reversed the traffic, because in Thailand everybody drives on the left-hand side of the road, and we were finally making our shot, which had taken probably 2.5 hours to set up, for a shot that's going to last maybe 30 seconds on the screen. In the middle of it, the police all of a sudden snapped to attention and ushered us out of the camera positions, made all of our vehicles come off the boulevard, and sure enough, a royal procession. We had the prince with all of the police cars and the follow cars, and they all had to come by. We all had to get off the streets. Those of us who were wearing shorts were not allowed to be in his sight. And it took us an hour to regroup and get ready to make the shot again, and sure enough, one of the princesses came through. That happened 3 times. It's not the sort of thing that you expect.
You know, in the end, nobody's going to care. It's like you're spending a lot of time and effort because you're going to have to get that to be correct, and no one will care about it, but it's just in there.
I much prefer location shooting because, one, it allows me, selfishly, it allows me to go to travel and explore someplace I don't know, but also, quite frankly, it gives the movie a real verisimilitude. It just seems like it's actually taking place different from the artifice of a Hollywood studio. And sometimes it's nothing more than being able to look out the window and see the real thing behind you.
This is really funny. They put us in this great hotel, the Hilton Hotel, and I got my room, and it was right on a really busy street called Wireless Road in Bangkok. And you could hear every single tuk-tuk and car and motorcycle, and they don't have anywhere near, I mean, they basically make the motorcycles without mufflers there. You cannot imagine how loud this stuff, it's literally ear-shattering. And I got into my room, and it was like 2 o'clock in the morning, and it was so loud and an expensive, beautiful hotel, and I thought, I'm not going to fall asleep in this place for 4 weeks. So I went downstairs to the manager of the hotel, and I said, listen, they said, oh, sir, we cannot put every, I said, yes, but I'm with the movie. And they said, oh, but sir, we cannot put every movie employee in the quieter part of the hotel. We would have no, I said, no, you don't understand. You don't understand. I'm the writer. And I said, the director is over on that quiet side, and I need to be over on that quiet side. In case he needs something from me, I need to be there. And what they did was, I just wanted to be on the same side of the hotel as those people. I don't know how they did this, but they put me in the next room. So every time Barry would need something, he'd like knock on the wall. I'd hear like a, so I was there for like, you know, he had like a rewrite idea any time of day or night. I would be so close there, but it actually turned out to be a good thing because I had questions of my own, and I knocked on his door or his wall also, and but I was, you know, I kind of I tried to get a quiet room, and I used him as a kind of, you know, I used him as an excuse for them to put me over there, and they really put me over there. I didn't really want to be next door to him. This place on earth, it was at least 100, it was literally 121 degrees, something like that, maybe 124.
It was hot, very hot.
And that humidity, that if you walk out of an air-conditioned building, you know, your glasses just fog up immediately.
And by the way, it really, the weather really helps the look of the movie. The movie looks like it's hot, and it looks like everybody's always sweating and consequently uncomfortable, and you know, not everything was air conditioned, so there are fans blowing throughout, and it's just part of the overall verisimilitude of of the movie. But it was at times it was blisteringly hot. But you know, you can get through it.
I fainted the first day. It was like 6 o'clock in the morning. It was already 100.
You couldn't imagine it. You didn't even believe it. When it was happening, you think by a certain age, you know your body. You've grown up in New York. You've been in heat waves. All of a sudden, you're in Bangkok, and you're sweating in places you've never sweated before. You know, wait, this never opened up here and did this. That's an impossibility. You can't physically sweat there. And you know, behind the ear, I'd never sweat. It was incredible. But in a strange way, you did get used to it.
First day I show up there, I was unaware of the sun in Thailand, and I arrived there, and everybody's hanging out at the pool. So I go to the pool, and I notice a girl's laying there topless. So naturally, I go next to her. And I'm there for about an hour or two talking to her and not thinking anything of it. And I had never experienced sunburn like that in my life. And in fact, the first week I have to call my doctor to get, to say, what do I put on this? I mean, I wound up with first-degree burns, and I am just beet red. I mean, and there was nothing as painful as getting into wardrobe, Army wardrobe, and putting this stuff on. And I remember putting the boots on, and the pain that I was in for about the first week was brought on by myself totally, but quite excruciating.
And also, every now and then a rain would come. It would be like a monsoon. You'd be in the back of one of those tuk-tuks, and it would just open up, and you just laugh.
I loved it. I love the people over there. And there's something extremely intoxicating about it in a way, you know? When you go upriver on those little boats, and I forgot the name of them now, and you just see the land and the way it is. I mean, there's something really